It's 11 p.m. and you're standing in your bathroom holding your dog's paw under the tap for the third time tonight, because if you don't, they're going to chew it raw before morning. You've already tried the spray from the pet store. You've already tried the pills that made them groggy for 2 days straight. And you are exhausted in that specific way that only a pet parent watching their best friend suffer understands. I need you to know something before we go any further tonight. You are not failing your dog. Most of what's sold to treat itchy skin and fleas either masks the problem or oversells what a kitchen ingredient can actually do. And by the end of this video, you're going to know exactly which is which. Hi, I'm Dr. Albert, and I'm a licensed veterinarian. Skin problems and flea and tick prevention are probably the two things I get asked about more than anything else in exam rooms, and honestly, they're two of the most misunderstood topics in all of pet care, because the internet is full of advice that sounds smart, but was never actually tested on a dog's skin. So today I want to walk you through this the way I'd walk a client through it in my clinic. What actually calms an itchy dog down tonight? What's actually causing it underneath? And how to build a long-term plan that keeps fleas, ticks, and flare-ups from coming back without guessing your way through it. Let's start where you are right now, because if your dog is miserable, you don't want a biology lecture, you want relief. So step one is calming the fire down. If you're looking at your dog's skin and you see a red, angry, wet-looking patch, what we call a hot spot, that area is inflamed, it's likely got surface bacteria multiplying in it, and it needs to be kept clean, cool, and dry. A clean, cool compress held gently against the area for a few minutes several times a day genuinely helps reduce that heat and inflammation. And it's something you can do with nothing more than a washcloth and cold water. What I don't want you doing is layering thick ointments or oils directly onto broken, weeping skin, because that traps moisture and bacteria underneath it instead of letting it heal. And if a hot spot is spreading, getting worse, or your dog is clearly in pain, that's genuinely a same-week vet visit, not a wait and see. Hot spots can go from small to dinner plate sized in under 24 hours. Now, if what you're noticing isn't a hot spot, but more of a musty, almost corn chip smell coming from their paws or their ears, your instinct is right. That smell is a strong sign of yeast overgrowth on the skin, and it's incredibly common, especially in dogs with allergies. Here's the important nuance, though. Yeast overgrowth is usually a secondary problem, meaning something else. Allergies, moisture, an ear structure issue created the environment yeast loves, and until that root cause is addressed, the yeast tends to keep coming back no matter what you wipe it with. A diluted antiseptic or medicated wipe made for pet skin, used between the toes and around the ear flap, can help manage the smell and discomfort in the meantime. But if your dog is constantly reinfected, that's a sign we need to find out why their skin barrier is struggling in the first place. And that really does call for a proper vet exam rather than an indefinite home routine. For full-body itching, the kind where your dog is red and flaky pretty much everywhere after being outside, a plain, unscented colloidal oatmeal bath is genuinely one of the better home tools you have. You can find pet-safe colloidal oatmeal products or grind plain, unsweetened oats into a fine powder yourself. Here's the detail almost nobody mentions. The water temperature matters enormously. Lukewarm to cool water, never hot. Heat pulls blood to the surface of already inflamed skin and makes the itching noticeably worse, even though it might feel soothing to you. Let your dog soak for about 10 minutes, then pat. Don't rub them dry. This won't cure an underlying condition, but it buys real, meaningful comfort while you work on the bigger picture. And if your dog is one of those dogs who licks or chews more out of boredom, stress, or habit than actual itch, a frozen dog-safe chew, a large raw carrot works well for most dogs, gives them something appropriate to focus that energy on. Chewing is genuinely calming for dogs. It's not a myth. It won't fix a medical skin issue, but it can break an anxious licking habit in the moment. Okay, the fire's out, or at least it's smaller. Now let's talk about why this is happening at all, because this is where most advice online completely falls apart. It treats every itchy dog like they have the same problem, and they don't. In the exam room, itchy skin in dogs almost always traces back to one of three things: fleas, environmental allergies like pollen or dust mites, or a food sensitivity. And here's the honest, slightly frustrating truth. You genuinely cannot always tell which one it is just by looking, because they can look nearly identical on the skin. That's not me trying to sell you an office visit. It's just clinically true, and I'd rather tell you that than pretend a kitchen ingredient can diagnose your dog for you. What I can tell you is how to narrow it down at home. If the itching is worst in certain seasons, that points toward environmental allergies. If it's year-round and started when you changed foods, or it comes with digestive symptoms like soft stool, that points toward a possible food sensitivity, and that's something we'd work through with an actual elimination diet, not just adding a new supplement on top of their current food. And if you're finding actual fleas, flea dirt, those little dark specks that turn reddish-brown on a wet paper towel, or your dog is scratching mainly around the tail base and back legs, that's your flea signal. Which brings me to the topic I know a lot of you came here for, fleas and ticks, and whether you really need chemical prevention. I want to be straight with you here, because this is a place where I see well-meaning pet parents get talked into something risky. There are natural ingredients that can make your dog somewhat less appealing to insects. Things like a small amount of apple cider vinegar in food, which some owners find helps, though the evidence for it is honestly more anecdotal than proven. What there is not good evidence for is that any home remedy reliably prevents flea infestations, or more importantly, protects your dog from tick-borne diseases like Lyme disease or ehrlichiosis, which can be genuinely dangerous and sometimes life-threatening. Ticks don't need to feed for long to transmit disease. So here's my honest clinical stance. If you live anywhere with a real flea or tick population, a vet-recommended preventative is doing a job that kitchen ingredients simply cannot do. And I'd rather you hear that clearly from me than find out the hard way. Natural additions can be a nice supporting layer. They are not a substitute for real prevention, and I'll flag that plainly rather than let you assume otherwise. Now let's build the long game, because this is the part that actually stops the cycle instead of just managing it week to week. A huge amount of chronic itching traces back to gut health, and this isn't some vague wellness buzzword. There's a real physical connection between the gut lining and how reactive the immune system is throughout the rest of the body, including the skin. Diets heavy in cheap fillers and highly processed carbohydrates can disrupt that gut balance in some dogs, which can make the immune system more prone to overreacting to things like pollen or dust that shouldn't be a big deal. If you want to support gut health at home, a spoonful of plain, unsweetened yogurt or kefir with live active cultures, or a small amount of plain canned pumpkin added to their regular food a few times a week is a reasonable, low-risk way to do it. And this is exactly the kind of moment where I want to give you a real safety warning, not a throwaway one. If you're buying yogurt or kefir for your dog, you have to check the label for xylitol, which is sometimes listed as birch sugar. It's an artificial sweetener that's genuinely seriously toxic to dogs. Even a small amount can cause a dangerous drop in blood sugar and liver failure. It shows up more and more in diet and sugar-free products, so this is a check the label every time situation, not a one-time thing. The last piece of the long-term plan is skin barrier support, and this one's simple: omega-3 fatty acids. Your dog's outer skin layer turns over roughly every 3 weeks, and that new layer is built largely from fats. A properly dosed fish oil supplement made for dogs, or a small amount of plain cooked fish like sardines packed in water with no added salt, gives their body the raw material to build a stronger, better hydrated skin barrier, one that's naturally more resistant to the dryness and irritation that kicks off the itch cycle in the first place. If you go the food route rather than a supplement, keep it to twice a week or so as an addition to a complete diet, not a replacement for it. So here's the whole thing brought together, because I know that was a lot. Tonight, cool and calm the skin, a cold compress or an oatmeal bath, never hot water. Figure out the category, flea, environmental, or food, using what you're actually seeing, and get a real diagnosis if it's not obvious, because treating the wrong cause is the single biggest reason home routines fail long-term. Use a genuine vet-recommended flea and tick preventative if you're in an area with any real risk. Don't let a home remedy be the only thing standing between your dog and a tick-borne illness. And support the gut and skin from the inside with simple, safe additions, plain probiotics, omega-3s, while always checking labels for xylitol and steering clear of onion, garlic, and heavily seasoned human foods. I know it's exhausting to watch your dog uncomfortable in their own skin, and I know it's tempting to want one simple fix that solves everything tonight. But the dogs I see get real, lasting relief are the ones whose owners treat this like the layered problem it actually is. Quick comfort now, real answers about the cause, and steady prevention going forward. That's not a less loving way to care for your dog. It's actually the most loving thing you can do, because it's the version that keeps working 6 months from now, not just tonight. If this helped you understand what's actually going on with your dog's skin, hit that like button. It genuinely helps this kind of grounded, clinically honest advice reach more pet parents instead of the videos promising a miracle in 1 teaspoon. Subscribe if you want more of these straight from the clinic breakdowns. And I'd really love to know in the comments, is it the itching that's driving you crazy, or is it the flea and tick worry keeping you up at night? Tell me which one, and tell me what you've already tried. I read every comment, and it genuinely shapes what I cover next. Give your dog a gentle scratch behind the ears from me tonight, and I'll see you in the next one.